And now, live from Level 5 Productions on the island of Milleronia, it's The Larry Miller Show. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and anyone who loves a big fancy dinner at home. Hi, folks, and welcome back to the Larry Miller Show. I'm Larry Miller, but in a way, aren't we all? And boy, we sure are today. Oh, I have so much to tell you. It's just, I'm back on the mainland, by the way, here with Colonel Jeff, and there's a reason for that, too. And boy, first of all, it's a beautiful day here in Southern California, and as always, that music makes me feel great, and it has the same effect on Colonel Jeff. And of course, that's the Orson Welles Orchestra and the Marlene Dietrich Dancers, featuring boy tenor Brad Simpson asking the musical question, if you blow your own horn, is that music to other people's ears? Good question. And the Colonel thought so too. Boy, interesting question, and especially because there are two answers to it. Think about it. If you blow your own horn, is that music to other people's ears? Well, the first answer is no, it's not. Because who wants to hear a fella going on and on about himself? And no, it's not. I don't need to hear that, and you don't need to hear it. And, well, he's taking quite a presumption there that he can just yak and yak about himself, he or she can, and that I or you don't need to hear it. But you know what, folks? On the other hand, yes, it is music to other people's ears. And the main reason is that you blew your own horn well enough to get it to their ears. And that means a lot. Supposing a man or a woman is a great poet and dancer and writer and actor, like me. But supposing someone is really great at all sorts of things, and he's got a certain amount of fame there to it, but you know what? He wants more. He wants to get it to other people's ears a lot more and get his work out there more. And he's decided the way to do that is to blow his own horn. And who knows what he does? He goes on talk shows or puts up billboards or just in the music itself puts in lyrics that say, hey, listen to me, buy my stuff. Or whatever way he or she does it. You know what, folks? What's wrong with that? And in fact, it's a blessing. You want to say to that person, you know what? Good work. And thank you. And the work is terrific, but I wouldn't have known that if you hadn't blown your own horn. And so I think, and the Colonel agrees with me, that, Brad, good question. If you blow your own horn, is that music to other people's ears? I say yes. Sure, you could make an argument that, no, it's not. But yes, it is. Someone's great and wants you to know it and wants you to hear it and wants you to read it. And it is music to other people's ears since you blew your own horn enough to get it to their ears. So, good question, Brad. That's the way I feel. And, by the way, as you know, I mentioned and honored Orson Welles and Marlene Dietrich there, and there's a reason for that too, and that'll be coming up soon. And by PayPal, still one of the best companies I know. If you enjoy my show, and why wouldn't you, and you'd like to send us a few bucks to help out, and why wouldn't you, you can do it through PayPal. And instead of saying, donate or pay what you like, I always like to say, buy us some drinks. That's right. It's important. Well, there are different levels to drinking. As you know, there's level 1 through 5, all the way up to...
We're driving to Florida!
Boy, oh boy. That fella is blowing his own horn. That fellow who just says, yes! And good for him. So you know what, though, folks? Do that and get to PayPal. You can get there 1,000 ways. Any computer you have, your iPhone, any screen you have. But you know what? Don't annoy yourself. Let us take you there. What you do is go to our website, which is LarryMillerPodcast.com. Who's on the Mountain? Tom Mix. I like how it just goes up at the one. At the end, like just a half a tone up. Anyway, folks, do that because look for the PayPal banner on our website, which, again, is LarryMillerPodcast.com. Who's on the Mountain? Tom Mix. Ooh, pardon me, I should have had the fish. At any rate, do that. Go there. Every little bit helps us keep the old leg lamp lit. And thank you to everyone who's contributed already. And thank you to everyone who's thinking, you know what? It's about time I did too. So good for you, folks. And that takes me to my favorite part of the show, the joke of the week. I do love this part, in addition to that bongo drum at the end, which is one of those, I've remarked on this before, but it's just perfect to have that as a tone. What does it mean? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know if anyone does. It's classic. It's like old-time cartoons where as the character, like a good guy character, is getting ready to run away from a bad guy character, he really gets his speed going by, he's in the same place, he just kind of jumps up a little bit and his feet start to go before he's even hit the ground, before he's even going anywhere, and that's what they'll play, the bongo drums like that. And then when he hits the ground, he gets going. And that's when the bad guy knows, wow, I didn't plan this well at all. So in any case, folks, this is a great joke of the week, and I love doing it. And as always, I say, and it's true, if you like this joke, pass it on to one of your friends or loved ones, anybody you like. And Colonel Jeff and I both love this one. During World War II, still right in the middle, and right in the middle of Germany. And it's around 1944, so they're not doing well at all, which is good. And their places are getting destroyed. The cities are getting leveled by American and British bombers. And there are 2 Jewish prisoners who escaped from a concentration camp, and they've been their own little gang going around Germany for a couple of years now, and they destroy, they knock trains down, they knock bridges down, they're on their own, and they're very successful, and sure enough, they get caught. They get caught by the Nazis. There's a patrol out there, and that part of the city they're in is just, wow, it's all knocked down, it's all bombed down, and they don't kid around. As you remember, those guys, well, all Nazis, they just put these 2 Jewish guys up against the one of the last standing brick walls there, and they're just going to shoot them. That's it. There's no trial. There's no discussion. There's nothing to wonder about. No, nobody's going to even speak to them. And the leader of the patrol just said he gets his men in a line, and they pick up their rifles, and one of the fellas against the wall just says, wait a minute now. You think this is the end, but it's not. It's never going to be the end for you. Sure, you can do what you want now, and you won't be responsible to us, but God sees this, and God knows it, and He will punish you someday. And the guy's friend leans over and says, Abe, please, don't cause trouble. I love that joke because, as I've mentioned before, there are many different kinds of jokes, but I love that joke of putting one kind of cultural aspect on top of another. You know, that, hey, please don't cause trouble. That sounds, I'm guessing to you the same way, it sounds like two Jewish men talking, well, in 1958, something like that. They're in the middle of Brooklyn somewhere, and they're not confronting anyone, and please don't cause trouble. And at a moment and in a place and time where there's nothing but trouble. But anyway, I like that joke a lot. I hope you do too. And as I said before, if you do, pass it on to someone you like. And it's fun to tell too, because that last line you get to tell as a completely different human being. Hey, please don't cause trouble. Anyway, folks, that brings me to my second favorite part of the show, the Poetry Corner. The Poetry Corner. And that string quartet has never been more beautiful. And it's a terrific poem, and it's called Anniversary by Gwen Harwood. She was Australian, by the way, and lived from 1920 to 1995. She's considered one of Australia's finest poets. She used pseudonyms for a lot of her early work. I don't know why folks do that, but she did it and she liked it. And in addition to being a poet, she was a librettist, which means, by the way, she writes the words, say, for an opera, the whole book for the opera. And she published over 420 works, including 386 poems and 13 librettos. Well, so we already know she was terrific. But what a nice title, Anniversary, because, yesterday was my and my wife's 25th anniversary. And I want to tell you about that too. And there's a good reason. But let's listen to Gwen Harwood's work. Anniversary. So the light falls, and so it fell, on branched leaved with flocking birds. Light stole a city's weight to swell the colored life of stone. Your words hung weightless in my ear. Remember me. All words except those words were drowned in the fresh babbling rush of spring. In summer's dream-filled light, one sound echoed through all the whispering galleries of green. Remember me. Rods of light point home the flocking starlings to wintry trees and turn stone into golden ochre, locking the orbit of my pain. I learn the weight of light and stone. Remember me. Isn't that lovely? And, it's not only a wonderful poem, folks, but, and not just because yesterday was my anniversary, but Colonel Jeff picked this because of that. And what a nice sentiment, though, to come around to saying to someone in a moment for good reasons, remember me. And you know what? When you're alive and together, and when you've passed on, and we'll be together for a far longer time in a different place. And you know what, though? It's a good sentiment. Remember me. I'll remember you, folks, and I hope you remember me, too. And the same with Colonel Jeff. So that brings me to my third favorite part of the show, Magic Movie Moment. MMM, Triple M. Boom. I love that piano note at the end. This is a great movie. It's wonderful. I hope you know how great it is. It's from 1953, A Touch of Evil. written, directed, and starring Orson Welles. And boy, oh boy, folks, that man did so much great work and gave so much to us and to the world. Orson Welles wrote it, directed it, and starred in it. And starring also, boy, Charlton Heston, Janet Leigh, Marlene Dietrich, Akim Tamiroff, a great actor, I hope you know him, and so many more. And it really is, it's in black and white, and it's about the border between Mexico and the United States. And Charlton Heston playing Mike Vargas, who's a Mexican detective on one of their police forces there. And Janet Leigh plays his wife, Susan Vargas. And, of course, they're Mexicans, and so they live in Mexico. And it's a story, it's a film noirish story of, and the great Orson Welles plays Hank Quinlan, who's an American police detective. And as Colonel Jeff was mentioning before, he makes himself up to look, well, so dirty and rotten and plain evil and well, filthy, and he's always looking through people. He does a great acting job in this. And there's a scene, a magic movie moment, and I just want to mention, by the way, that Orson Welles once said something that I thought was just wonderful. He was asked in an interview who the three greatest directors were in Hollywood. And he immediately said, John Ford, and John Ford. And I agree. At any rate, though, a great movie, folks. And the scene I'm thinking of is Marlene Dietrich, who was just wonderful also in everything she did. And she's describing Hank Quinlan, remember Orson Welles, at the end of the movie. And she talks about him, and we realize that as bad a man as he was, and as rotten as he was, and as many lives as he took and hurt, we still cared about him the way she does. And she talks about him in that great accented voice. This was a man, say what you will, but... And she really cared. She loved him. And, well, what happens at the end, you should see. Please watch it sometime. A Touch of Evil from 1953. Charlton Heston, Janet Leigh, Marlene Dietrich, Akim Tamiroff, and so many more. Remember, a cast that doesn't stop. And, well, and directed and written and starring Orson Welles. I hope you see it, folks, if you never have, and I hope you love it, as you always will. And you see, that's why, by the way, touching on, anniversary before, yes, I mentioned yesterday, March 6th was my wife's and my anniversary. And it's also my parents' anniversary, which is interesting, and we picked the same date. And it's also my grandparents' anniversary. So that's pretty neat. How do you like that? There's 3 generations of family anniversaries in a row. And I'm here to tell you, by the way, folks, it's wonderful to do that. I was saying to Colonel Jeff before, I don't know any other family that does. Maybe you do, and it's just, we don't have many dates that mean something. And we were talking about this, and the Colonel mentioned that there's really no dates in the wedding world that mean anything. I know I had always heard of, I said, June wedding is supposed to be, wedding in June. I don't even know what that means, though. But it had been for so long. Well, a June wedding seemed like a good time to do it, but there's really nothing else. Picking something that involves family, I would like to recommend to you in a very strong way. And, as I said, I don't know any other family that does. I hope our kids pick that for their weddings, too. It's a great thing to keep going, folks. And I think our kids might pick that because I know, I can promise you that once they, meet nice girls and they're going out the right time and they care about each other, they love each other, and once they get engaged, and I'll know right off the bat, I'll know instantly because I'll be hovering over them like a hawk. Well, no, not like a hawk. I'll be on a branch like a panther, just waiting for them to do that. But I'm going to say, that, again, they already know about, that date. I'm going to say, hey, you know what time would be a good wedding? March 6th. Because remember, that's me and Mommy and my parents, my mom and dad, and my mom's parents, my grandparents. Be great to have 4 generations in a row. Yes, for both of you. What's that? Your fiancé doesn't care for that so much? Let me speak with her for 5 minutes. Why don't you just go into the kitchen and get us some beers? And I think she and I need to talk. But you know what? It makes you think 25th anniversary. That sounds like a big number, doesn't it? I mean, it's, wow, how do you like that? 25 years. And there's so much life in it. Oh, with children, of course, that's the greatest blessing. And so much work. And, the house needs repair. So you get that done. And, we have our doggies we love too. And, but folks, that's a lot of time to live. 25 years. God willing, we'll have another 25. And make it 50 years, a 50-year anniversary. And you know what? I sure hope my wife cooks that meal at home, too. And she doesn't need to hear me say that now, since it takes a lot of work. I'm here to tell you also, if you're married, a nice, quiet, homemade dinner at home is a far better way to celebrate your anniversary, any anniversary, than a big, expensive dinner out. Just try it sometime. That homemade things, folks, are not only delicious, but it makes you feel good, too. It makes both of you feel good. And that, my wife is a great cook, and like a chef. And she made, I hope I get this right, that French thing. Everything, by the way, that looks fancy to me gets the word French to it. I don't know why, but when it comes to food, are you going to use that French pan? I don't know if the pan is French, but to me, if it costs more than $85, it sounds like something French then. But she made let's see, what was this called? A chicken pillard, Pillard, which is you take the it's unskinned. You take the skin off, and you get these chicken fillets. And pillard means you beat them. And that's another good thing about foreign food, though. It doesn't sound that good when you say it in English, but you beat it. You get one of those hammers, and you really wallop it. Bam, 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 bam on the cutting board, and then you get it. She got a what do you call that pan? The skillet, she got the kind of pan that, cooks used to have on every cattle drive in 1880. Anyone named Cookie had one of these pans. They're big, they're heavy, they're like 20 pounds. Colonel Jeff, in fact, picked it up and went, holy mackerel. These are big pans. And she cooked in that. In fact, you could beat it with that pan and make it nice and pillard. But and then she made a homemade salad, a simple salad too, which is the best. Just lettuce, some iceberg lettuce, you pulled apart in pieces, and cherry tomatoes cut in half. And she made her own dressing too. And we even talked about it. She said, you know what, I like making dressing too, because you don't have to get dressing at the supermarket all the time. You don't have to get dressing in a bottle so it sits in the refrigerator for 2 years and just never gets used. And, then actually, when you finally go to throw her out and pick it up in the back of the fridge, it pulls back. It actually fights you. But I mean, she made such a nice dinner, and and got us a little cake for dessert that she said you had little white chocolate things on the outside of it. And I said, yeah. She said that reminded her of our wedding cake. And I said, oh, yeah, it does. Even though, frankly, I couldn't remember that anyway. But, I mean, there was a nice moment to agree and not say, gee, I have no idea what you're talking about. But, which is typical for husbands. But you know what, folks? I don't know if Eileen and I have done anything fancy for anniversaries in a long time. You know, that, a nice dinner out, as you know, is pretty expensive. Well, a couple of cocktails, a tuna tartare appetizer, a nice steak with a bottle of wine, and a nice dessert they carry out singing with candles in it, and an espresso with a double brandy on the side. She and I had a bunch of those dinners when, we were just going out, and then, but then when we had some things to talk about when we were married, anniversaries. But sure, there are nice dinners out there, folks. But I'll be honest, once you get back home, I think, and, I can tell you, that's how our kids were made. You eat and drink all that. And, you're feeling a little romantic. And sure, you don't need to go to another bar and have another 12 things. You go back home and brush your teeth and go to work. But I've never been a big fan of bigger, wilder anniversaries. We'll do those again, I'm sure, but I don't need it. And I'm here to say, folks, try it our way sometime. You won't be sorry. I know that, and once again, that's in the world of the things you know and I know. Homer is Homer, and Pluto is a planet. So remember, folks, as always, if you walked out of bed today and had a job to go to and a home to come back to where someone cares about you for 25 years, folks, the game's over and you've won. Be well, and we'll see you here next time.